What is up, guys? Ninja Nick 333. We're back with another round of the League Cup that happened at Flipside Gaming in East Greenbush, New York, the week before NAIC. This was our first real chance to crack at the Paldea Evolved format. So we do have Scott, who's been on camera here at this tournament already a couple of times, versus, is that Chris? I can't remember who I put on. This looks like Chris. Chris Saikala with Giratina Lost Box. He was doing a lot of testing and was thinking that Giratina Lost Box was one of the best decks in the format. But after this, leading up to NAIC, all the format testing was basically just saying that it was not. So I think he decided Gardevoir was the best deck, and then last minute got convinced by Brian Hunter to switch to Lugia, and then bricked all of his rounds at NAIC because that's what Lugia does. So, so we have, Scott again with Gardevoir on the left. He is going first, winning the coin flip. Got to start that beautiful Mew with the mysterious tail. He's able to chain quite a few item cards together to get his board set up. Even got the Radiant Greninja with concealed cards. I think both of the times we saw him during this tournament previously, he was not able to get the Radiant Greninja down. So good to see that he has that now. This is best of 3 this time, so we are going to have to see if Chris is able to get a little bit better of a start in maybe the next game as opposed to this one, because it looks like he's using Clara to just recycle energies that he's discarded with concealed cards. So not looking too hot right now. It'd be nice to retreat into the Comfey, get a flower selecting off. He does. This is turn 2. He does not have a single card in the Lost Zone yet, and already has a Giratina V-Star established on the board. So crazy to see that. And is just going to get another Comfey out to the bench and pass the turn. So doesn't really have any switching cards in hand, unfortunately for him. So might lose this Comfey to an attack if Scott is able to establish a Gardevoir EX with a rare candy. You always love to see the turn 2 rare candy Gardevoir. You do not see it a lot, but it is pretty great. A lot of these Gardevoir decks have cut down to 2 rare candies, so not necessarily seeing it as often as we previously did when they were playing 3 to 4 copies. I still prefer the 3 myself, but it is really hard to find the room for it. So I think my list right now doesn't have it, but I really want it. Just because it's so powerful turn 2 in the mirror if you can get it off. So we are going to use our refinements, our concealed cards. We're drawing some cards, getting our hand as big as possible. Looks like Chris did put down a Temple of Sinnoh, so that one that we drew into our hand here is not super relevant. Would have liked to see that get discarded instead of the Professor's Research, maybe, because of course you do see your opponent already has Temple of Sinnoh in play. So nothing you can do with that card besides discard it. Unless maybe he has another research in hand and is already planning on using it, which case would not really matter what he discards off the Ultra Ball. So we do go for the Gardevoir EX, and there is the rare candy. You'll love to see it. Rare candies into the Gardevoir EX. We will be able to get a turn 2 attack this game. What we really want to do is establish Cresselia, because then we can knock out Comfey with that, accelerating energy into play and healing our own Pokemon while putting up a 1 prize Pokemon. You'd prefer not to attack with the Gardevoir EX if you can avoid it. So here we go, evolving into our second Kirlia. We find off the level ball. We will be able to use 1 more refinement for the turn. Yeah, it looks like we just discarded the research and we don't have another one. We discard a Gardevoir and we get rid of the Temple of Sinnoh as well. So I'm not sure why we're prioritizing keeping that stadium in hand. Maybe he's thinking that Chris is playing Path to the Peak as well as the Temple of Sinnoh. That would make a lot of sense. So he's holding on to the stadium just as an out to Path to the Peak in the future. He doesn't know exactly what Chris's 60 looks like. So that makes sense. That is definitely the correct play. Giratina does a lot of times play Path to the Peak. Although with the start that Chris has, I don't think that you're really fearing Path to the Peak so much, because Chris would need to get an attack with the Greninja off the same turn that he paths to the peak. And yeah, just Chris just scoops. Looks like nothing was going for him. He got a really, really bricky start. He had 2 Mirage Gates in hand. And even though Scott did not have a Manaphy on his bench, just did not have anything he can do. So Chris is going to scoop, and we are going to go directly into a game 2. So Scott is up 1-0 there on the left. And again, we are going to have to see if Chris gets a better start than this. So let me see if I can fast forward a little bit to get right into the action. One of my pet peeves is when I just watch a video of a game in progress and all it is just people shuffling between matches. Looks like Scott did get a mulligan. Maybe we can fast forward a little bit more, and yes. All right, so it looks like Chris will most likely be going first, right? Yes, he is. So he starts with the Battle VIP Pass, starts the Giratina, which is a little unfortunate. You'd prefer to start the Comfey, but Giratina isn't the worst starter, just because you can always use the first attack to do a pseudo Colress. It does allow you to look at the top 4 instead of the top 5, keep 2, put 2 in the lost zone. You can't do that turn 1, unfortunately, but it will be usable in future turns if you really need to, which is, again, why I say that the Comfey start is still preferred. You just need to find a switch or an escape rope in order to be able to go into the Comfey. So we do have a switch cart, so we are going to be able to do that. I do like regular switch a little bit better in the Giratina V-Star versions of Lost Box, just because you can switch out of your Giratina V-Star a little bit easier if you have the regular switch. But the switch cart is a lot more beneficial to heal off a lot of damage that things like the Rapid Strike deck or the Lost Box mirrors will do to you. It just doesn't work if you have a Giratina active. But are you really going to want to use it if you have a Giratina active? That's the real question. So gets a Mirage Gate and a Giratina V-Star into the Lost Zone. Doesn't matter too much. I think Chris is on a 3-3 line of the Giratina V stuff. So losing a 1-1 line at any point isn't super relevant. It doesn't really matter too much. Chris is sort of realizing that I have zones on this new mat. So he put the cards in the Lost Zone. I mean, if you're playing on my mat, you don't really have to use the zones. I just use it as a helpful guide for the camera, basically. The mat, I try to keep the mat up to the borders of the screen that you can see. And just try to keep everything looking a little bit clean here. So, looks like we do use, what are we, discarding a Battle VIP Pass with an Ultra Ball. I did look away for a second because I was talking about my layout. So, it would be good for Scott to maybe get the Rare Candy Gardevoir again. He could potentially attack with the Zacian here. He does only have 1 energy on it so far. He was not able to get the... Or no, this is his first turn still. For some reason, I'm thinking this is his second turn now. So he can Roar the Sword to the Zacian, and that will be really great. So Scott's got a pretty immaculate setup here. The only thing he's missing is the Radiant Greninja, but that is because he started the Zacian. He doesn't really have any room for it. You want to have that Cresselia. It is a little bit better in this matchup than the Greninja, just because you can't attack with the Greninja, whereas the Cresselia can heal your board and knock out benched Comfeys at the same time. So pretty great there. So it does use the Roar of the Sword after attaching for turn. He's just 1 more attach for turn away from being able to attack with Zacian. He does have the Reversal Energy in hand, which funnily enough will only be a single colorless on Zacian, but his attack cost is triple colorless. So he will be doing less damage if there is no... there will be less damage because it's not a Psychic Energy, but he can still do the attack and he will still be able to knock out a Comfey. So pretty great there. He'll still be doing, I think, 120? Yeah, 120 he'll still be doing. So looks like we do go for an escape rope. Scott is going to put the Cresselia into the active because he knows if he gets hit by a Cramorant, this will still live, and then he can start healing off damage from his board. It's already in this active spot where he wants it. He won't have to retreat anything into it. So that is perfectly great. Chris, unfortunately, has double Giratina V in the Lost Zone now, so he is going to have to work with only this 1 Giratina V-Star for the entire match. So Chris is just moving his dudes around, using another escape rope, and is going to hit with the Cramorant. That is a 5 on the one die, is a little hard to see, but the other one is a 4. That is 100, or no, or is that a 6? Yeah, it looks like a 5 and a 4 on there. That's not right. It should be 110. That matters a lot because you can two-shot a Zacian. Yeah, it should be a 6 and a 4. A 6 and a 5, not a 4 and a 5. So hopefully... Oh, they do fix that. Awesome. Okay. He probably meant to put it down on the 6, and it rolled a little bit after he put it down. That's most likely what happened. So we do get our first refinement off. We've got 2 Kirlias in play. Again, going to be looking for that rare candy Gardevoir so that we can keep pace with this deck here. It's very unfortunate that we did get the 110 damage onto the Zacian already. I think it would have been a little bit better to just sacrifice a Ralts to the Cramorant so that this Zacian stayed fully healthy. But again, Chris could always be forced to use the Giratina V-Star as the next attack. So if that is the case, it's good to have the damage on the Zacian because that effectively blanks the damage from the Cramorant. It doesn't matter because you would one-shot with Giratina either way. But if the Sableye is the next attack, we will be able to see that knock out the Zacian. So again, yeah, I would prefer to just let the one Ralts with the 60 HP go down to the Cramorant. Because it feels... There's 2 situations out of 3 where it's better to do it that way. But again, he did promote the correct one in the Cresselia, and that's why usually you want to have turn 1 both Cresselia and Greninja down, because when your opponent escape ropes you, you can switch between the 2 so that the Cramorant damage doesn't matter too much. And you can protect all of your Ralts that are in play. So not necessarily the best to have the Zacian, but you can get some attacks off early with it, so sometimes it does work out if your opponent gets a little bit slower of a start. So we are going to go in with yet another level ball here. We are going to search through our deck. We got rid of a Manaphy too, which is very relevant. If Chris gets to a Greninja at some point, we will actually see that take a 2 Kirlia knockout turn, which is really scary to see. Or even knock out a Kirlia as well as a Zacian at the same time, if you get like a Sableye there in between to do a couple additional damage counters. So, I think I don't know if we discarded that worker or we just used it, but either way. So we are going to use the Fog Crystal there. We're going to search out for a card. Did we fail that? It looks like we failed that. And we just, or maybe we searched for the energy that we attached to our active. Now we attack. So we do get to take a prize card. So we've taken the first prize card again of the game. But again, he does have a damage 2 prizer, so when Chris takes his first prize cards of the game, he will be able to take 2 and take the prize lead. So Chris definitely being favored right now to be the one to win this game, and we might see a game 3, so we will have to see. So we are going to use flower selecting here. Looks like water energy, and boss's order is going to be forced to get rid of the water energy. I think that's fine because I think that's the first water energy you've seen, and you're not really attacking with Greninja right now anyway. Looks like another, it looks like jet energy and another water energy. I think between the 2, you get rid of the jet energy. Although you could use it to force the Comfey active and retreat it, but you want to attach for turn to the Sableye preferably. Looks like we are going to retreat into another Comfey. Just taps the one on his bench to show that he's just using flower selecting, cutting that one little corner. But we all know what he means, so it's fine. And it looks like all of these flower selectings are exceedingly difficult for Chris. Oh, it looks like Switch Cart and Mirage Gate. Yeah, that's not super good because you want to keep that Switch Cart here to use it to use another flower selecting. But at the very least, you can Mirage Gate to the active and to the Sableye and be able to Sableye as long as you have enough in the Lost Zone. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cards. Oh no. He's 1 short right now. If he were to retreat into a Comfey, he's going to have to find a Switch card off of that. Or no, he's already retreated for turn, actually. So Yeah, since he got rid of the switch cart, he couldn't get to the 10th card in the lost zone. Yeah, I think that maybe it would have been more correct to keep the switch cart and just hope that you get into a Mirage Gate off the next flower selecting, but I know that's pretty risky. And you still are sort of even on board state, really, if you're letting the Zacian live one more turn. Once you take the knockout on that, you will go to even prize cards, and you could always take an easy lead by using Sableye to knock out multiple Pokemon in the same turn at some point, or use a Greninja in combination with the Mirage Gate to knock out 2 Kirlia would be really great as well. Looks like Chris and Scott are having a disagreement on which one evolved this turn, but he had all 4 Kirlia in play the last turn, so I don't think it really matters who he evolves. Or maybe Chris is saying, evolve the one you haven't used the ability on instead of one of the ones you have used the ability on. Would be kind of the same thing. So Boss's Orders is bringing up that Giratina V-Star. We're going to get the first hit on that, and that might actually be super relevant. I think here you actually... Oh, no, okay. So I was going to say, if you're hitting into the Giratina, I think you stay with the Zacian in the active and just hit big number against that, but... we are going to go for the Cresselia this turn, and we're going to be able to knock out the Sableye on the bench for Chris, healing off all of the damage we just put into play. So yeah, you see that 1 die on the Zacian is now a 3. The blue one is a 3 now. We've healed 2 off of that, and as well 2 off of the 3 Pokemon that just had the damage counters put on them. So Scott stepping a step by the 2 of them having the understanding that the 20 is going on it and immediately coming off of it. So no point in putting them on. Would have been nice for the camera, but I don't really care. Do you guys care? I don't know. If you care, let me know. That's what the comments are for. So goes back into Scott's turn again, and Chris is just not doing really hot right here. He's just not getting the correct combination of cards that he needs in order to pull off any sort of attack. Yeah, this is really rough for him. So Scott is going to get a free Cresselia attack off here yet again to be able to knock out yet another Comfey and go ahead yet an additional prize card. He'll be 3 ahead now, even if Chris is able to get like a Sableye turn to knock out the Zacian. He will still be behind a prize card, but also that Zacian, since it's at 90 damage on it, is actually 10 away from a Sableye being able to snipe it for knockout. So that Cresselia heal being super relevant, and I think at this point there is no hope for Chris. What he would need to do is get maybe a boss knockout on the Gardevoir EX with a Cleansing Gloves on his Giratina V-Star, because then he would be able to do the 310 necessary to knock it out in 1 hit. He is at enough in the Lost Zone to be able to do that, but even if he does that, again, that's only 2 prize cards. If Scott is able to just get another Gardevoir into play, he can just one-shot that Giratina in response. And looks like Scott is deciding not to attack with Cresselia this turn. This is very odd to me. Yeah, I definitely don't agree. Oh, maybe he's gonna boss up the Giratina? Okay, so he's saying there's 10 HP left. That's why he has the 10 on it. So he is bossing the Giratina now, going down to 2 prize cards remaining. So now he has a 4 prize lead on Chris. Doesn't care if his Zacian gets knocked out. Again, the 1 damage counter that's on it is signifying that there's actually 10 HP left. I will be honest, it's one of my pet peeves, but I always let my opponent do it. It doesn't technically represent the correct amount of damage on there. And if a judge were to come by it, like a regional or an international tournament, they'd say that that is 1 damage counter. So if you were having an argument between your opponent that that's 10 HP left, the judge would say, well, that's 1 damage counter. So, because these are the locals, like, I'll let Scott do it. I don't care. And stuff like that. But if I'm at a regional, I'm going to make my opponent generally do that. Unless I think that they're, like, friendly enough. I think I did let one of my opponents do that at an EIC. They're like, oh, I have 1 damage counter left. So he put it on top of the HP value instead of in the middle of the card. And I think that helps a lot to show that it's like remaining HP instead of how many damage counters are on it. So Scott is going to go for the Pal Pad here. Iono and Worker going back into the deck because, of course, the Path to the Peak is in play. So we are going to want to find that Worker. We do have 2 Kirlia and a Shining Arcana to be able to potentially find it. Oh, no, just put back the... Wait, did he not use it yet? Draws the rest of his deck with the Kirlia. Yeah, and then you could always Pal Pad after that, put just the Worker back in, draw, or the Worker and something else even, draw 2 with the Kirlia, play the Worker, you do as much as you can, so even though it says discard a stadium, discard a stadium, draw 3, you can still discard the stadium and effectively do something with the card. Attaches the reversal energy as well, which doesn't really do anything for him. He's not behind, so it's just a colorless energy. But Gardevoir can attack for 3 colorless energies. And it looks like we are going to go for the Iono here because we did find Temple of Sinnoh. So put back the Worker into the deck. Well, actually made the deck Worker. In case another Path to the Peak comes down. This is a fantastic sequencing from Scott, just basically guaranteeing that he'll have the game won. Chris will have to maybe judge to really disrupt this from Scott, or I guess I guess an Iono or Roxanne would work too, but not very well. Chris is going to go for another boss's orders on this Gardevoir, and at this point he is just hoping that this Kirlia cannot move, because I don't think there's enough energy in the discard pile to be able to be Psychic Embraced to the active to retreat it. And there might not be any Psychic energy in deck. And Gardevoir usually does not play any switching cards. So we are going to use Shining Arcana to draw 2. We draw Super Rod. Okay. I'm not sure that helps. Yeah, that doesn't help because you don't have the energy in discard. So actually attaching that reversal to the Gardevoir was a little bit punishing, because that could have been an attach for turn to the Kirlia. And this is like a situation that you can get into sometimes with Gardevoir where you have too much energy on one of your Pokemon, or like a lot of times when you're using Cresselia multiple turns in a row, you have too much energy in play, which is why a lot of times if your Cresselia gets knocked out, you want to promote a Kirlia that has 2 energy. And then retreat it so the energy goes back to the discard pile so you can use Cresselia again after a Super Rod. So Scott is going to try to find a way to get this Kirlia moved out of the active spot. Chris is just going to hope for deck out at this point. That is Chris's only reliable win condition. And they're just playing draw pass. So Chris is hoping there's not an energy card left in deck for Scott. So he has 2 energy cards in the discard pile. One of them is just reversal. Oh, I think Scott didn't draw on his previous turn, but I don't think it matters because Chris's deck is still too big. Scott can always, yeah, okay, drew the correct card for turn because the top card got knocked off and almost got put on the bottom. And then Super Rods. Okay, so he's really trying to deck out after Chris. He thinks that he can do it. Yeah, I do think Scott did actually miss a draw for turn. I think he thought about drawing for turn, then counted his discard pile, and then forgot to actually draw for turn and just said pass. So I think he should actually be 1 less card in deck than he actually is. Oh, he's going to collapse. He's going to collapse his Zacian. Oh, and he's gotten there. Oh, that was a perfect play from Scott. Was able to... The way he was able to do that, to collapse his energy out of play. So he super rotted Pokemon back in just so that he would have one to bench, because he didn't have any left in deck to bench to make the Collapse Stadium work. So he waits until he decks out so he can super rod back in his Pokemon, and as soon as he draws the Pokemon, collapses the energy into the discard pile. So yeah, perfectly played by Scott. That was amazing. That did not look like that was a game that he was going to be able to win, but managed to pull it out. So props to him, winning 2-0 against Chris in top 4 of this League Cup. So Scott will be moving on to the finals. We will see him one more time for that. We will see you guys in tomorrow's upload when that goes up. Do not forget to comment, like, and subscribe. It feeds the YouTube algorithm. He's always hungry. He's a hungry boy. He's a hungry robot boy, I guess. And we'll see you guys next time.